James Ruse was a Cornish farmer who, at the age of 23, was convicted of breaking and entering and was sentenced to 7 years transportation to Australia. He arrived at Sydney Cove on the First Fleet with 18 months of his sentence remaining. Ruse applied to Governor Arthur Phillip for a land grant, stating that he had been bred to farming. Governor Phillip, desperate to make the colony self-sufficient, allocated Ruse an allotment at Rose Hill, where he proved himself industrious and showed that it was possible for a family to survive through farming. Having done this, Ruse received a grant of 30 acres, enabling him eventually to sell 600 bushels of corn. This was the very first grant of land in New South Wales. Ruse later exchanged the grant for more fertile land on the Hawkesbury River. In later life, having been almost bankrupted from his farm by flooding, Ruse found work as a seaman and later as a landowner's overseer. Early life. In 1759, James Ruse was born at Launceston, Cornwall, England on the 9th of August 1760. In 1782, he was tried at Bodmin Assizes and sentenced to death for burglariously breaking and entering the dwelling house of Thomas Olive and stealing their 2 silver watches and other goods. He was reprieved and sentenced to transportation for 7 years. He was sent on the Scarborough, one of the First Fleet, and arrived in New South Wales on the 19th of January 1788. As a pioneering farmer, in 1789 Ruse produced the first successful wheat harvest in New South Wales. Whilst this harvest didn't yield sufficient grain to make flour for the colony, Ruse did produce enough seeds for the next year's crop, which was successful. Such was the colony's need for a food supply, that Governor Phillip rewarded Ruse for his success with the first land grant made in New South Wales, along with a gift of pigs and chickens. In February 1791, Ruse declared to the authorities that he was self-sufficient, and 2 months later, in March, he was granted a further 30 acres. Ruse expected to reap about 8 bushels to the acre. After Ruse's sentence expired in 1792, the title of his land was deeded to him, the first land grant in the colony. In 1793, he sold his land to Dr. John Harris of the New South Wales Corps for £40. The property is now the Experiment Farm Cottage Museum of the National Trust of Australia. In 1794, Ruse moved further out, to the junction of the Hawkesbury River with South Creek, and became a fairly successful farmer. He and Elizabeth raised 7 children, 2 of whom were thought to have been adopted. Later, however, his livelihood was wiped out by flooding, which was always the risk of farming in the Hawkesbury, and had to find work as a seaman. He was heavily in debt, and only the hard work of his wife saved him from bankruptcy. From 1828, he was employed as an overseer by a landowner at Minto, south of Sydney. He died at Campbelltown on the 5th of September 1837. Ruse's gravestone, parts of which he carved himself, reads, Gloria in excelsis sacred to the Memerey of James Ruse, who departed this life sept. My mother reread me tenderely, with me she took much pains, and when I arrived in the colneysowd the forced grain, and now with my heavenly Father I hope forever to remain. Family life. Ruse married fellow convict Elizabeth Parry on the 5th of September 1790. They had 6 children together: Rebecca, James, Elizabeth, Susanna, Mary and Anne. Legacy. A replica of this tombstone stands in the front garden of Barangaree House, the administration block at James Ruse Agricultural High School. The original headstone, carved by James Ruse himself, was moved by his descendants to a secure location after vandals damaged some headstones in the old St. John's Cemetery at Campbelltown, NSW. The headstone is now in the care of the Campbelltown and Eds Historical Society at Glen Alvin House in Lithgow Street, Campbelltown. The memory of James Ruse is perpetuated in the naming of key locations in Sydney, including James Ruse Agricultural High School in Carlingford, James Ruse Drive, running from Silverwater to Northmead, near Parramatta, and Ruse, a suburb in southwest Sydney. In 1980, the noted Cornish folk singer Brenda Wootton wrote and recorded the song James Ruse, which uses as the chorus the last 4 lines of the tombstone inscription.